I'm Alison Coates from Speaking Solutions. We're an organisation that specialises in spoken communication, and I'm delighted to be working with Ajida to deliver some information about spoken communication, the importance of it, how that might look and work in the community. So spoken communication is absolutely critical for everybody throughout life, but there's not quite enough emphasis on it at the moment. You know, it's a subject that tends to fall behind literacy and numeracy in schools, although that does seem to be changing. But it's something that employers have at the top of their list when they are interviewing and choosing people to work with them. People can be disadvantaged in terms of not having the tools to communicate effectively from a really, really early age. And once that disadvantage has set in, it's quite difficult to change that and to get some parity again with people that had the advantages that these people haven't had. For instance, when a child is at age 5, the most disadvantaged children at that age are generally 19 months behind their peers in terms of acquisition of vocabulary. So you can see how that would immediately put them at a disadvantage throughout the rest of their school career and into adulthood as well. So it is something that needs to be addressed from a really, really early age. There are lifelong consequences to being unable to communicate effectively, you know, whether it's day-to-day personal life, like being able to make an appointment with your doctor, or whether it's something to do with your career and being able to stand up and make a presentation. You know, these are all things that we need to be able to do. We must be able to communicate effectively. Not having those skills in the workforce and in the economy is limiting to us as a nation. And so it makes perfect sense that we should do everything that we can do to ensure that everybody has that equal opportunity and that equal access to communication skills from a really, really young age. When we're thinking about communicating in a community setting, we often hear people say, well, you know, nobody's going to listen to me. I'm just one person. I can't really make my voice heard. But that's just not true. There are so many things that you can do as an individual to make your voice heard. And in order to do that, you have to step up and you have to be heard. You know, there is a saying, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And that's very true when it comes to communication. So you need to think about what sort of change you want. You know, are there community groups that you can join, whether they are live groups or whether they're online groups? Certainly a lot of the latter at the moment with the situation that we're currently in. Writing to your MP and continuing to write to your MP until you get some sort of a response. You know, if there is a particular cause that you feel very strongly about and you don't feel that enough is being done, what's to stop you from starting your own charity or starting your own non-profit group or your own group to raise awareness of that issue? You know, there are campaigns that you can take part in. There are so many things that you can do to make your voice heard, even as an individual. So I think sometimes people do forget that they have that power and they can make their voices heard. As well as having the confidence to do these things and to put yourself forward, you're also going to need a skill set. You know, being able to communicate and being able to speak up isn't necessarily enough. It's how you do it as well as what it is that you're saying. So you need to perhaps think about the way that you communicate. What is your style of communication? Are you somebody that is naturally quite passive, who will sit back and let everybody else do the talking, even though there's something that you would really quite like to say? Are you somebody that is quite passive aggressive, who will perhaps let other people speak, but make it very clear that you're doing so grudgingly? Are you somebody who has quite an aggressive style, who wants to be heard over everybody else, who talks over everybody else and doesn't let anybody else get a word in? Or would you say that you are an assertive communicator, somebody who lets everybody else speak, who listens as effectively as they speak? So identifying what your personal speaking style is can also have quite an impact on the way that you're going to communicate going forward with your community or in your day-to-day life. Something that I'd really like to share with you that's very effective when you are communicating, whether it's for your employer, whether it's your own business as a self-employed person, whatever it is, in terms of getting a message over, whether this is something about writing to a newspaper, the telling of stories is something that people have been interested in since time began. People love listening to stories. They are hardwired to listen to stories, and you will notice immediate engagement when you tell a story effectively. So we need to think about what stories we want to tell in terms of our community. What story do we want to get out there? What is the narrative? What story do we want our businesses to tell? What is it that we want people to think of us? What is our story and how can we share that? And there are many different kinds of stories. There are several different frames, and your business, your life, your message will fit into one of those frames. That's something that we go into in a lot more detail as part of Speaking Solutions, but it is something that you could perhaps investigate and see how that would work. And I often say to people, try this as an experiment. If you're on social media, have a go, tell a story. Tell a story to the people that you associate with, your followers, and watch the engagement, because they will engage with a story, because as we said, that's what human beings do. And particularly if it is a story that is that's something that's going to be quite emotional for them, or is going to impact them on some emotional level, they will engage with it. So have a think about that, perhaps have a try of that and see how that works out for you. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about is something else that I'm involved with outside of Speaking Solutions, which is debate training. And debating is another set of skills. Again, I think learning to communicate is one thing, and having the tools to do that and to identify your style of communication, that's all very well. But debating skills are higher order skills. They are next level skills, because in debating, you need to be able to think on your feet. You need to be able to respond in a non-aggressive way. You need to be able to give an argument in a clear way, and you need to be able to illustrate it and evidence the points that you're making. And you might think that these aren't skills that we would necessarily use in everyday life, but they are skills that are often going to be used in a community setting. I mean, for example, let's say that your community wanted to set up a meeting space and they had some safety concerns. So there would be meetings about those safety concerns, addressing those safety concerns and so on. And this is somewhere where debating skills would come in very useful. So I want to just leave you with some very brief tips on these sorts of skills and how you could use them in that sort of a situation. So when we're thinking about debating, the first thing that we're trying to do is make a point, and we want to make that succinctly. We don't want to ramble on and on. So we're making a point succinctly. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to explain that point. So you're going to imagine that you've given your point and that somebody has said to you, what do you mean by that? And so you're going to expand, you're going to give that explanation. Then the next thing that you're going to do is give an example or some evidence, something that really backs up what it is that you are saying. So in order to do that, in order to bring that to a community group in a situation like this, you're going to need to have done your homework. You're going to be able to evidence what it is that you want to get across. And I'm using the community group as an example, but of course this will work whether you're writing to the newspaper, whether you're writing to your MP, whether you're getting involved in a cause. You need to be shown to be reliable, and you need to be convincing in what it is that you're saying. So that evidence, that example is what's going to do that. And when you've done those three things, you want to link back to what you said at the beginning. What was the point? Why, what does all this mean? How does it all link back to the point? So if you can think of the acronym PEAL, P-E-E-L, that will help you to remember how to structure your points when you are involved in a debate type of situation, a debate meeting, whether that's at work, whether it's in the community, whether it's outside of those situations. But that will help you to stay on track, to stay calm and collected, and to make your point in a clear way. And ultimately, that's what we want. We want clarity and we want confidence. And these are skills that can be learned. They're not skills that we're necessarily born with. Some people are, but they are skills that everybody can learn. And that's what's really important to us at Speaking Solutions. And of course, Ajida as well, is giving people the confidence to feel that they can empower themselves with these sorts of skills.